So to the substance of today's presentation, how do you export under the AfCFTA? I'm going to take you through a lot of steps. I will try to simplify them to the best of my ability and give you stages, steps, and all of that. And of course, please note any point where it is not clear and you may need, responses to for clarification. So when it comes to AfCFTA export, we would say that the stages are principally four. The first stage is the business and exporter registration stage. Here, the main focus is that before you begin your export journey, you must be registered, and you must be registered with the requisite national institutions from or within Ghana. We'll talk about that in detail. So that's the first step. So you don't go export the AfCFTA when you've not done your homework. The second one is stage 2 is certification and compliance. And here, the main things that you need to do is to be able to meet the origin requirements, is to be able to know if your product is on the liberalized list of the importing country. You are exporting from Ghana, but if you are exporting to, let's say, Kenya, you must be sure that the product you are exporting to Kenya is in their liberalized list. I think I'll spend time to talk about that in subsequent slides. You need to get the necessary certifications and approvals from what we call permit issuing agencies, because in Ghana, for you to be able to export, you must have certain permits. Without those permits, your products cannot be exported. And these are things you must do before, way before you export. The third one, or the third stage, is to meet customs requirements. So yes, your product is good to go by the permit issuing agencies, but it must clear customs procedures. You must submit the goods in terms of what documentation you provide to customs, and then you must also submit the goods for customs verification vis-a-vis what is in the documents. And then, if everything is good, you go on to the fourth stage, which is dealing with your shipping and logistics, as well as post-export procedures. So all of that we're going to talk about today. So let's start with stage 1, business and exporter registration. Now, one of the key things to note is that for you to be able to be engaged in export, you must be a registered business. You must be a registered business. So even if you are an individual and you are interested in exporting under the AfCFTA, you must be a registered business. So, of course, we know that for you to register as a business, you have to go to the registrar of companies. And the registrar of companies would do the registration of your business for you. So you can register as a sole proprietor, and the steps involved are here, or a partnership or a limited liability company, depending on how you want to be registered. I think one of the common things you need to know is that for you to register as a business, you need a tax identification number, which you obtain by submitting some details at the Register of Companies or through the Ghana Revenue Authority's platform for you to register for your tax identification number, which is popularly called TIN. Now, in Ghana, if you have a Ghana National ID card, your personal identification number, which is a number behind the back of your national ID card, PIN, can be used as your TIN. So when you are registering your business, instead of registering for a TIN, you can use your PIN, which is your personal identification number, within the at the back of your national ID card as your tax identification number. And of course, if you're registering, the processes are here, and you should be able to register, within a short time. Now, after you register as a business, the next thing you need to do is register as an exporter. So this process requires at least 4 steps. The first step I've mentioned already is the business registration. So when you go to Ghana Export Promotion Authority to register as an exporter, you'll be required to produce your business registration information or documents. And so you need to have done that before going on to Ghana Export Promotion Authority or using the Integrated Customs Management System, which is the portal you can use for the registrations. So you register with Ghana Export Promotion Authority, and then they would, of course, ask you a couple of questions on their form. One of the things you need to also do is to register with the permit issuing agencies. And here we're talking about the three siblings or the three sisters. We have the Food and Drugs Authority, which is responsible for permitting the sale, export, and use of anything food and drugs in Ghana. You have the Plant Protection and Regulatory Services Directorate, which of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, which is responsible for also permitting the import-export of plant products. So if it's fresh vegetables, if it's anything plant, the PPRSD is responsible for that. Then you have the Ghana Standards Authority, which develops and issues standards for products which you are exporting. So you would also need to register with them. So these are three institutions you are strongly advised. I don't want to. If I say advice, I think it's a nice way of saying you are required to, because at the point of export, if you are not registered with any of these ones and you are in the food, drinks, and FMCG sector, you may likely have a challenge with, of course, their regulations. Now, registering with the PPRSD, FDA, and GSA is not, it's not a day's process. You have to have also submitted information about your product, what goes into making the product, or planting the product and getting the approval weeks in advance. Averagely, I would say putting a buffer of at least 6 weeks. That is all things being equal, which means that you have the information the right way, you have the information the way they want it, and you have the supporting documents that you need to provide. These institutions will likely conduct an inspection of your processing facility or wherever you make your product. So, for example, if I were to be in the export of, let's say, fresh chilies, and I harvest them from somewhere in the eastern region, and I have a pack house, the pack house, the process of doing that must be pre-approved by either PPRSD or FDA, and that process have to be done before I am issued a permit to be able to export. And so Ghana Export Promotion Authority would like to have that permit before they register you. And then once they are comfortable, that is the permit issuing agencies and the Ghana Export Promotion Authority are comfortable or accept your registration, then you'll be good to go as an exporter. So this step is a generic exporter registration. This is not AfCFTA registration. What it means is that if you register with Ghana Export Promotion Authority, you are known as an exporter. Now you can choose to use any export medium, any export protocol to export. For example, if you're a UK business and you are interested in exporting under the UK Ghana partnership, that is a next step after this one. Or you want to use the AfCFTA, that's the next step after this one. So, to be able to expand the AfCFTA, the next thing is to meet regulatory compliance. And what we advise is that you classify your products. So every product under the sun which is involved in international trade must have an HS code, Harmonized Commodity Description and Classification System, HS code for short. And the HS code for your product can be found, for example, if you go to the GRA, the Ghana Revenue Authority's website, you can do a search for your HS. You can do that on the ICOM's website, the Integrated Customs Management System website, to know the HS code for your product. It's usually at least a 6 code to a 10 digit, 6 digits to 10 digits code, which comprise of several aspects. So you have the chapter, you have the heading, and then you have the sub-headings, which give a lot of detail as to what the product is. So for example, there may be a code for cocoa, but if it's cocoa beans, it has its own HS. If it's cocoa powder, it has its own HS. If it's chocolate with cocoa, it has its own HS, which of course are all connected to cocoa. Now, when it comes to the AfCFTA, one of the things you need to do in utilizing your classification is to know whether your product is made in Ghana or made in Africa. The AfCFTA uses what we call product-specific rules of origin. And so the Annex 2 of the Protocol on Trading Goods, which is one of the protocols of the AfCFTA, has an appendix, Appendix 4, which lists specific product rules of origin. I think I'll talk about that later. But this means is that when you go to this Appendix 4 of Annex 2, which is the second step on my slide, you will see there the HS code for your product, the applicable description for your product, and the applicable rules of origin. And now, based on that, you can determine if your products meet the rules of origin or not. So we'll talk about rules of origin, I'm sure, shortly, which is the next slide. So what are rules of origin? These are criteria set in law that determine the geographic nationality of a product. So there are several products involved in international trade. How do you determine if this tuber of yam, if this bag of, or if this 5 kg of gari is originating from Ghana? How do you determine if this biscuits made by so and so company, if this fruit juice by Blue Skies, for example, is made in Ghana? That determination, that customs determination, is done using the rules of origin. Now, let me clarify this. We are not talking about rules of origin or labeling requirements. You can label your product and say this is made in Ghana or this is made in your country. But there are processes established by rules of origin in customs procedures that determine the origin. So for the sake of today, there are two main ways of determining origin. If you're looking on my slide, you see this graphic where there are two arms. So the one to your left is the wholly obtained criteria. Wholly obtained criteria. Wholly obtained criteria is used to determine groups of products which all of the ingredients used to make the product, or all the ingredients of the product, are originating from one country. So if, for illustration, I make fruit juice, and that fruit juice comprises mango, or is made up of mango fruit juice, and the mangoes were harvested in Somenya in the eastern region of Ghana, squeezed into a bottle and labeled as such, then we can say that that product is wholly obtained. The fruit juice is wholly obtained. Similarly, if I make fruit juice made up of some citrus product and mango, and both the citrus and the mango are from one country, Ghana, we can say that the product is wholly obtained. If, for the sake of illustration, I make the same mango but with flavors, let's say of maybe coconuts from another country which is not Ghana, and in that container I cannot say that the product is made in Ghana, at least by the description of wholly obtained. Now, the second leg is what we call substantial transformation. And substantial transformation allows for the processing of products that changes the essential form of the product, and also allows for addition of other products or other ingredients that make the product have origin that is determined by at least 3